watching Stewart Spotlight Podcast live with your host, William Stewart Jr. with topics of everyday life. Tune in every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Today's guest, Gwendolyn Hawkins. For part 2, building a better credit report and score. Sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode. Now your host, William Stewart Jr.
Good evening, and welcome to Stewart Spotlight Podcast. My name is William Stewart Jr., and I am your host this evening. So happy that you guys had the opportunity to join in for another exciting episode. I hope everyone had a wonderful week this week and getting ready for the weekend. Today is Friday, May the 9th, 2025. This year is going by fast. I don't know. I just don't know. But anyway, I forgot to mention something last week. Monday was this. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Cinco de Mayo. I hope everyone enjoyed that day celebrating. And Monday, May 5th was Cinco de Mayo Day. And this Sunday, May 11th, is Mother's Day week. Mother's Day weekend. I'm just claiming the whole weekend for Mother's Day weekend for May the 11th. You know, I have a little small poem that I found online, and I forgot to get the artist's name, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. It says, "Forever, my mom." It's a poem. You helped my hand when I was small. You caught me when I took a fall. You taught me lessons and wiped my tears. You stood beside me through the years. No words could match the love you give. You showed me how a heart should live. No words could match the love you give. You showed me a heart should still live. For all you are and all you do, forever, Mom, I cherish you. I really enjoyed that one. That was a really nice one. Thank you. I forgot the artist's name, so bear with me. The artists know who wrote that, but I'll get the artist's name next week. There was a couple of birthdays that I got to mention. I believe it was a dear friend of mine, Valencia, and she's and Tanya Clark is coming up this Tuesday, May the 13th. Also, you know, it's that time that I'm asking for everyone to give me support. Yes, I need your support.
I need your support. I need you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and make sure you turn on your notifications. So therefore, every time you hear this, you know that Stewart Spotlight Podcast is live.
That's right. Make sure you turn on your notification bell. So therefore, every time you hear that bell on your devices, your cell phone, tablet, computer, you know that we're live. And also leave a comment. Give us some feedback of what you've seen and what could be done. So we need your feedback. Make sure you tune in and turn on your notification. Today's guest, we had from last week, and she did a wonderful job, received a lot of accolades and some questions that was brought to my attention. It was Gwendolyn Hawkins from Gwen Helping Hands. She's a CCUFC, a certified credit union financial counselor. You know, last week she spoke on, it's a two-part series. Part one, she spoke on the components of your credit report. And this week, she's going to speak on building a better credit report and score. This is going to be very interesting. So I'm trying to get her back on for maybe another month, because she brought up a very interesting point last week that we need to do a 3-part, but we're going to talk about that toward the end. So we're going to take a little small break. And after this break, we're going to have my guest on. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is William Stewart Jr. I'm the host of Stewart Spotlight Podcast. How would you like to be a guest on my show? If you have gone through something, came out of something, and just want to share it, we would love for you to be a guest to discuss any topic related to your situation. Your insight of experience, wisdom, knowledge would be invaluable to our viewers. Who knows? By sharing could help someone who may gone through what you came out of. Sharing is caring. So give us a call, 888-552-1944, so we can schedule you on the next Stewart Spotlight Podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Give us a call at 888-552-1944 to be the next guest on Stewart Spotlight Podcast. We would love to have you on the show to talk about whatever you like to talk about. We are open book. So bring it on. Welcome back to Stewart Spotlight Podcast. And once again, my name is William Stewart Jr. I'm your host. But we have a very exciting guest this evening for part 2. And I'm not going to hold her long. I know she wants to come on and say what she has to say. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Gwendolyn Hawkins. Hey, Gwen.
Good evening. Good evening, and welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. How are you today?
I am well. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad that you took the time to do a part 2, because you made a very interesting point last week about a part 3 that we got to think about that one, because people have some good ideas, or you might want to share some of your wisdom and knowledge about that. So we're going to talk about that down the road. Okay. But first of all, Gwen, thank you once again for coming back on and doing part 2 of building a better credit report and score. Mm-hmm. Also, last week, we had a couple of individuals who called in and left a message, and I want to know if you can share some insight before we go into part 2.
Okay.
One of the questions was from Sherry Thomas from Detroit, Michigan. Hello, Sherry, if you're watching. She said her credit score was 710 for over a year. She continued to pay her bills on time, and her score has not moved. What should I do?
Tune in to this podcast, because I'm going to break down some information. I think that would help, because it's more than one thing that's a factor. So stick around.
All right. Okay, I have another question from Trey McGee from Chicago, Illinois. He said that I disputed an issue from my creditors on all 3 credit reports over 60 days, and they have not removed it yet. How long should I wait?
Actually, and we're going to talk a little bit about the dispute process. You should have had a response by now.
Okay.
60 days is kind of long, because if they have to, from the time that the credit bureaus receive your dispute, there is 30 days that if the company does not respond to that dispute, you should have received a letter stating that it was deleted. So if you have not heard anything, your next thing is to contact those credit bureaus back, and maybe by making a phone call to find out the status of your disputes first.
Okay. Yeah, he says waited over 60 days and have not removed it yet. So
but he should have received something, because the dispute, they'll tell you either the information was verified as reported, meaning the creditor, they reached out to the creditor says this information is accurate. Mm-hmm. Or if it's not accurate, of course they have to let you know. And again, if the creditor does not respond at all, they are required to remove it from the credit report. So there's some follow-up information that he needs.
Okay. Here's another one from Dwayne Washington from Atlanta, Georgia. It says, thank you for the information on credit components. You mentioned establishing small accounts. I messed up my credit a long time ago and had to reestablish my credit score. My son is 16 years of age. What should he do now?
Because he is a minor, he cannot obtain credit in his name. However, what I would suggest is you get and put him on one of your accounts as an authorized user. You don't have to give him the card, but that'll help build credit for him, at least right now. The Credit Card Act changed the rules for minors, for younger people getting credit. Back in the day, we could go to anywhere as long as we and get a credit card.
Oh, wow.
Pass out a free T-shirt. Remember back, we can go to one store, they give you a free T-shirt, you got a credit card.
Okay.
Well, young people were getting into debt. The companies are going to the college campuses, giving these kids credit cards. They didn't have a job, but now you're putting them into debt. So yeah, right now they have to be 21 to get credit.
Okay.
A credit card rather. If they are under 21, and I believe it's from 8, they have to be at least 18. The parent has to co-sign for that card. So again, you can put them on as an authorized user. Like I said, you don't have to give them a card right now, but that'll help establish a credit file for them.
Now you just mentioned put them on as an additional authorized user, but is that building up his credit or building up the person's credit?
The person you already have an account established. You're just adding that's minor as an authorized user. Okay. So they're going to create a credit file, and that's going to be reporting on the minor's credit report as well.
Oh. So
yes, you are building credit at that time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my last question is says, how many credit cards should I have?
There is no magic number for that. Short answer, what you can afford. And you want to get credit cards that fit your needs. So if you travel a lot, look for travel cards, reward cards, and those type of things. Instead of just applying for a credit card because we all like going to a store and getting a discount. But you want to pay attention to those interest rates because some of these department store cards, while they offer discounts, Kohl's like Victoria's Secrets and those type of stores, they give you a discount. But with a 29 or upwards of that % interest rate, is it really worth getting those type of cards? And those are department store cards, so the interest rates are higher because you can only use them at a particular store. So those are good for building credit, but you can do some other things too that'll be a better fit for you.
Okay. Well, Gwen, I guess we are finished with that. So now we're going to go straight into your building a credit report. So you just let me know what's the next step.
Okay, go to the next slide, please.
Okay, next slide.
All right, so here we're going to start with, because credit scores is a big factor of credit. So what makes up your credit score? So let's start with one, FICO credit scores. FICO, does anyone know what FICO stands for? You probably don't, but you've heard this term for years. FICO is the Fair Isaac Corporation that created the credit scoring model. There are several versions of FICO credit scores. So when you are actually applying for credit, you tend to, you're not going to really know which credit agency is being used to pull your credit, but do know that each credit bureau, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian all have their own scoring systems. So your credit scores are going to vary, and that depends on what's being reported on the credit report at that time. Most lenders still use FICO as the dominant credit scoring model. There is something called Vantage Score. We'll discuss that in the next slide. So I'm going to go into the breakdown of each of these. So you see this FICO pie chart here. The numbers coincide and tell you what makes up the credit score. So you'll see 35% is payment history. So this is probably the most important of handling your credit. Making your payments on time, frequency of late payment. Stuff happens. If you have a late payment, the quickest thing to do is get back on track with making your payments on time. How recent the late payment is affects your credit score more. The older that incident gets, so if you had a late payment, say last year versus a late payment last month, you're not going to get dinged as hard from that late payment from last year. The thing is, you don't want to continually have late payments, because the more late payments or more frequently you have late payments, that's going to drop your credit score, and very rapidly. If you are someone who carries a high credit score, 700 plus, when those incidents happen, they tend to hit your credit score harder. So you don't lose just a few points. You can lose up to 70 to 90 points possibly for being late. It is possible to come back from it. The thing you want to be concerned about with late payments. If it's your fault, the creditor does not have to remove it, and a lot of them won't. You can always ask if there's a good enough reason to see if they'll remove the credit, the reporting from your credit report. What they may tell you is they can't do that, but they'll waive, the late fee. But sometimes those both go together, if because nothing hits your credit report unless it's actually 30 days late. So if you have an account and you're paid, you're 5 days late, you're late, you might incur a late fee from that creditor, but it does not report on your credit report. So just, be aware of that. Keep making your payments on time. The next section, 30% is your available credit. So this applies to mostly credit cards. Ideally, you want to keep your credit card balances at 30% of your limits or lower if you carry a balance. Now, if you pay your credit cards off in full each month, great. Less interest that you're paying, maybe make your payments on time. As those credit cards start approaching their limits, your credit score will start dropping a little bit, because now you've been carrying maxed out debt. So get those balances down. Number 3, 15% is the length of history. So the time you've had credit. The longer you've had credit helps your credit score. If you have credit cards you have not used in a while, make a purchase, pay off the card. Don't allow that card to close out, because again, the longer you've had credit is a big factor of you with keeping a higher credit score. I generally don't suggest closing out credit cards unless you have credit cards that are charging you, some type of fees, monthly fees, annual fees. And I'm not talking about your rewards points cards. Some cards, just charge annual fees because maybe you're trying to rebuild credit, and those are some types of cards. Sometimes those are the only type of cards you can get. So get out of those, work on getting your credit better, and you can always, move into a different account. The next one is the number of inquiries. So that's 10%. Whenever you apply for credit, that's a hard inquiry. Those inquiries will remain on your credit report for 2 years, and then they fall off automatically. Can you have inquiries removed from your credit report? It's very difficult. The only reason someone would remove an inquiry from your credit report if you did not apply for credit. But if it's just because you want an inquiry removed and you actually apply for credit, that won't happen. And the people are mostly concerned about when you apply for credit with an auto dealership or say for a mortgage. So they're generally, you go to the dealership and they send your information out to, like, say 10 different banks. So there's 10 different places running your credit. Because they know that the credit bureaus know that people are, looking for the best rate possible. That gets counted as one inquiry. They call it a like inquiry for auto loan purchases and for mortgages. People are shopping around, they're trying to get the best deal. They should not be penalized, and they're not. So usually if it's done within a 30 to 45-day window and you have all those inquiries for a car loan or for a mortgage, you'll only get hit one time. So do your shopping, find the best rate possible, and it will not hurt your credit. Okay, number 5, the type of credit. It's better to have a mix of credit instead of just having all credit cards or all loans. So try to mix it up. Mortgages, installment loans, revolving accounts, which is simply credit cards. So if the better you mix your credit, the better chance you have of building a better credit score. Okay. Next slide, please. So FICO and Vantage Score. What is a Vantage Score? Vantage Score is the result of the 3 credit agencies coming together to create their own scoring model. FICO owns those algorithms and all that model, but TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian still has to get their information from them, but they try to create this rival credit scoring system. Vantage scores are, so like when you get the apps from Credit Karma, your credit scores from there, Sometimes you might get a free credit score with your credit card companies, may give you a score each month. Look at the bottom of whatever you're looking at, and it'll tell you what type of credit score it is. So you will see that these are two different models. The numbers are, the range is still the same. The lowest on 300, the highest is 850. But if you look at the different color boxes here, you'll see the difference in the what the scores mean. So there's a bunch of different credit scores, just so you know. Each credit agency, again, reports something different. And again, depending on what time the creditor updates with that credit bureau, you'll see different scores. So here I'm going to focus on where it says fair on the FICO side on the left, Vantage score, it says poor. So you see a fair score is 580 to 669. A poor score showing here is 550 to 649. Realistically, if you apply for a mortgage, as long as you have a 640, and of course, depending on underwriting issues, you can qualify for a mortgage. So this isn't always makes sense to us. Most of the scores are generally for the lender. This is the guides that they use because they want to determine the risk involved when they're lending you money. So you can still get a mortgage with a 640, so you can't be that horrible. I always remind people, if you've had credit issues, bad credit is not a life sentence. Give yourself some time. There's kind of no real quick fixes. There are some things sometimes, depending on what's going on with your credit, that you can do for yourself. But, take your time. So we're going to go into some steps to build better credit. So next slide, please. So one, you want to review your credit reports for accuracy. Make sure the information in the credit report belongs to you. Your credit report is also going to contain if you have co-signed for someone, if you are an authorized user on someone else's account, all those things will report on your credit report. Next, pay your bills on time. Can I stress how important it is of making your payments on time? This is what a lender wants to see. So, when you're getting ready to apply for credit, that's the first thing I'm going to be looking at is how, where you're making your payments. Sometimes you get an automatic increase on your credit cards. And sometimes people say, I didn't ask for this. I don't want an automatic increase. Take the increase. You know what? It's always good to have that extra room on a credit card because you could have a card that's at its max, but now that you've gotten an increase without asking for it, they see that, they pull a soft pull. It doesn't affect your credit. But again, take the increase. That's a good thing. Next, if you have a bunch of credit cards outstanding, start putting a plan into place to pay down your credit card debt. If you are able to get a loan to pay off the credit cards, that's great. It would helping you increase your credit because now you have a different type of credit out there. You have a loan. You also have the credit card debt, which will be paid off. The thing you don't want to do is take out the loan, pay off the credit card debt, and then slowly but surely start using those credit cards again. You don't have to close them out, and I definitely don't suggest you close them out, but at least you want to be disciplined. As you make better choices with your credit, this is how you keep, one, building a better credit report and score. Two, it's also going to help you save money in the long run because the better your credit, the lower interest rates you're going to pay. And perhaps you didn't start out with the best credit. Again, it's okay. Work your way up, and when you're in a better position where your credit has gotten better, refinance a loan or auto loan so that you can lower rate. Again, you don't have to end up where you start out with in the credit. Again, do not close out accounts you've had for a long time. If you've had those cards and they've been open for a while and you haven't used them again, check to make sure, see if they're still open or closed. If they get closed out by a creditor, you'll see sometimes on the credit report something that says, the account was closed by a credit grantor. Sometimes, and you kind of won't probably know how to read this, but it could be due to one, you had a card, you probably opened it for one particular purchase, didn't use it anymore. So over time, then they'll close the card out for inactivity. And you don't want, like I said, you don't want that to happen with a lot of your credit cards because again, the longer you've had credit is a positive. The other thing with that is, I forgot. Well, I'll come back to that. So anyway, do not open or close multiple accounts at one time. So sometimes you get a credit report, you have these credit cards that you haven't used, and I want to close out all these credit cards. You might be doing a lot more damage to your credit. So Do not do that either. Let the cards, if it's something that you're just really, really not going to use, or say if it's a card that you had at one point, you're never going to use it again, or it was for a specific purpose. Sometimes like a care credit card, those type of cards are used for, sometime maybe medical things that are not covered, or pet costs and things like that. And you may not use their card on a regular basis. Well, just leave it there. Some of your Visa credit cards, though, if you have those and you haven't used them in a while, make a gas purchase, pay it off, and just keep the account open so that you don't lose that credit history. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so again, building better credit. Again, I want you to be encouraged. One thing I want to know, everybody in the world does not have great credit. And if we look at a few years ago during COVID, a lot of people that probably started out with good credit, probably after losing income, jobs, or different situations, even health issues, the credit, they couldn't maintain their credit. But there's still some steps that you can do to, get back on track. One, if you have no credit, start with maybe a secured card. William, is there another slide? Okay, right there. Start with a secured credit card. So this means that you have to put a deposit up into maybe like an account. Your deposit will be equal to your limit. So $200, $300, that might be required. Check with your bank, or you can go online and look for these type of cards. It's a secured credit card. Use the card, buy small purchases, make your payments on time. So this is for people who have no credit, or if you're trying to rebuild credit and you don't have any more credit cards, start with something like that. It's a small enough limit. Your minimum payment is going to be fairly small. Most of these cards also report to all 3 credit reporting agencies, which is really important. So that's what you want. Next, become an authorized user. So in that case, again, if you've got a parent that's had a credit card for a long time, become an authorized user. Now, authorized user was created so many years ago because, again, at the one time, the husband went to work. There were many women that were housewives. So they really couldn't benefit from getting credit because they didn't make the income. So they allowed this, for them to become an authorized user so they can help build credit as well. You still will need to build your own credit, but at least you'll be on that credit radar with something on your credit report, but still try to get something of your own. The next one, when a negative instance happens, so if you have a late payment, or if you know that you're having some difficulty with making a payment, or you don't get the same income anymore, your income reduces, and you need to, don't just not do anything with your credit. Call your creditor as soon as you can to see if you can get help before your credit tanks, basically. Sometimes they really would rather to hear from you before that action, or if it, as soon as you find out something's going on and you can't afford to do something anymore, contact them and try to work out some type of arrangement with them. Okay. Credit repair services. A lot of people utilize these services. However, there is a lot of things that you can pretty much do on your own. Credit repair services do a lot probably with the dispute process. Generally, if you don't see changes within like 90 days after you've signed up into a credit repair service, you may want to kind of revisit that to see what's going on with your credit. Credit repair services also do a lot of disputing information on your credit report. Sometimes there are promises to delete things off your credit report. Please note that the credit bureau themselves do not just remove things off your credit report because of a dispute. The dispute process is you send a dispute into the credit reporting agency. You say that either something's wrong with this account, this is not my account, I paid this account, or whatever it is. So the credit reporting agency is going to submit something to the company in question to find out, if what you're saying is accurate. If it is, either way, you'll get a response back from that credit reporting agency, and you should have that in probably 30 to 45 days top, because from the time that they receive the dispute, again, after 30 days, if the company does not respond, you still should be getting a response back to your dispute. So sometimes you may have to follow with that because maybe they'll come back and say, you know what, this company said it is your account, and you can say it's not my account, and you can prove that. If you have to get a police report, if it's something like fraud, get the police report. You may have to put a little bit more effort into it, but just don't take it for granted that because you submit a dispute, especially for something to be removed, that it's going to automatically, come off the credit report on the first time. Sometimes there's some things you're just going to have to, if it's something you actually owe, it went to a default status, it went to a collection agency, you can work with the collection agency if possible, see if they'll take a settlement. Also ask if they can remove the account once it's been paid in full. It does not hurt to ask. That could also maybe be sometimes be part of the negotiation. If you can pay the account and they'll delete it from your credit report if it's a collection type thing, that's something you can do. Again, these are disputes. Yeah, you can dispute things on your own. Just follow with the information once you get it back. Debt settlement and debt consolidation. I want to kind of just touch on these again. These are two different products, but they're often seen as interchangeable. Debt settlement is where a company was going to take some of your debt. Usually I see this with mostly credit cards. They're going to put it into one pot, basically. You stop making your payments on your credit, to those creditors. So initially you're going to see a default with your credit. They're going to try to negotiate settlements with those creditors on your behalf. You have to be careful with that. Pay attention to what you're signing up for, because some instances that work, some cases people are not aware of the process. And just because they're going to try to negotiate a settlement with the creditor does not have to accept that settlement. So they can actually go to take you to court, pursue you for the full debt. And now what else gets added to that? Court fees. So try to work with your creditors before, go on this route. Debt consolidation, that can be a positive thing. Again, we mentioned the situation before. If you got a bunch of credit cards and you can put that into a loan, home equity loan, use the equity, to pay off some other debt, high interest rate debt at a lower interest rate, great. Again, that helps improve your credit score. You're going to also save some money by consolidating because now you have one payment and possibly a lower interest rate. So those are good things. The key thing is whatever got you into that debt, you have to make some changes. You cannot go into thinking that, if you go and do the debt, especially debt consolidation, you pay off all your credit cards. And as a credit counselor, this is unfortunately one of the things that I see quite a bit. The credit cards get paid off, now you got a loan, but the temptation to go back to using those credit cards comes back. And now you have a loan plus you're using those credit cards again. So you're kind of putting yourself back into the same situations. So take your time, put a plan in place, work with your budget, definitely, look at your budget. You want to know what you can afford each month and what you can pay out. So, again, just pay attention to, your situations there. Bankruptcy should be a last resort. Again, if you just can't get out of a situation, you know that, sometimes that might be your only answer, but get some information first. There's two types generally for consumers: a Chapter 7, which kind of wipes out the debt if you pretty much may not have any assets, or the Chapter 13, where they put you on a bankruptcy plan. Now, you don't get a chance to really say which one you're going to file anymore. You do have to take what's called a means test through the bankruptcy office, and they will let you know which one they'll be able to let you qualify for, the Chapter 7 or the Chapter 13. So do note in filing a bankruptcy, if you're planning on getting new credit afterwards, that will happen. There might be a waiting period though for a mortgage, because now most mortgage lenders are requiring that if you've had a bankruptcy in your past, you have to maybe wait like after 2 years or 3 years. But give yourself some time if you have to file a bankruptcy. Again, you can rebuild credit from that as well. Start saving up your money and start small steps in obtaining new credit. Okay. I think I've covered everything that I need to at the moment. I know it's a lot of information. Here's my contact information. I'd be more than happy to address any concerns that you have about your credit. You can reach out to myself or Mr. Stewart. And But thank you all for having me back.
All right, Gwen. All right, Gwen. That was a lot of information that you shared, and I was writing down some notes as you was talking about it, and I want to see if you can share some insight on this. Now,
Okay.
you said something about late payments would reduce
hmm
your rating.
Late
Your,
payments will reduce. Oh, yeah. The late payments is the quickest way to drop your credit score.
okay.
So let me tell you this too. Your credit score does not increase as quickly as it drops.
hmm Wow.
So,
So it can
mhm.
drop fast, but then
Oh
it
yeah,
takes slow to get back
it may
up.
take a few months to go back up. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't necessarily go from, okay, I was late this month and it dropped. Next month I'm back current. It goes right back to the same score. No, your credit score gets rescored on a monthly basis.
Okay. Now, what about if you were to lose your job?
You should contact your creditors immediately
So,
to see what options, because if you lose your job, sometimes maybe if you're going to be getting unemployment, so maybe you're going to be getting less of an income, you know, and don't do anything until you actually know what kind of income you have. If you're not going to have an income, you know, you can let them know that you lost your job, but see what options they actually have, if there are any, for you.
okay. So therefore, if you work with your creditors,
Mhm.
that's a possibility that your score won't go down, or will it go down?
Well, it could. I mean, it still could go down, but because but it depends on the arrangement that you make. So,
Okay.
like, for instance, what I've seen sometimes, maybe my income drop, or whatever. So I lost my job. I was I'm on medical.
hmm
So my income is not what I'm regularly getting. So, but I can let my credit know, hey, my income has changed. My income is less right now because of some health issues. You don't have to go into a whole disclosure
Okay.
of what's happening, but they may say, okay, we'll put you on for 6 months at a lower payment, and then after that, let's revisit this. Because especially if you've been a customer that's paid, good with your credit, they do, they want money,
Okay.
so don't just. And I know a lot of time people make the mistake of, like, I'm just going to send them something because they have to take it. Sure, they do. But if you don't have an arrangement in place and they're still kind of billing you at your regular normal bill, and you're just sending in a payment,
Mhm.
well, that's going to hit your credit report.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That
so
makes
you
sense.
always talk to them, and that way you want to find out how that's going to affect you.
Okay. Now, also, you mentioned inquiries. It takes
hmm
if a person does an inquiry on your record on your credit report, it takes
hmm
2 years to get off
yeah,
for it to drop.
yeah,
Really?
yeah, to drop off.
2 years?
Yeah, they stay on your credit report for 2 years.
Wow.
hmm
So if
I
I'm
mean, realistically, that's probably not a bad thing, because a lot of times, a lot of people are not applying for credit that often.
okay,
So if you apply for one new card in 2 years, okay, that's fine.
okay,
Now, if you apply for 20 credit cards within a 12-month, or, let's say a 12 months, span, well, when you start applying for credit, lender's going to look at that. Okay, why are you applying for all this credit?
hmm
So that can be a red flag.
okay, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Now another question. I'm gonna bring up this
hmm
slide because
Okay.
this was very interesting. Now on this slide, the
hmm
FICA and Advantage is the numbers are so different. I'm looking at the FICA
hmm
exceptional under 800 to 850, but under the
Yep.
Advantage it's 750 to 850.
Yep. Yep.
So if you apply for a mortgage, most likely they're going to use the FICA versus the Advantage.
Correct.
Hmm.
Correct. Vantage score, like I said, Vantage score is the credit karma scores, or sometimes you get free credit scores with your credit cards,
Uh-huh.
and they'll give you a credit score. That's why I say it's so important. So a lot of times, and I see this because I deal with credit and credit reports on a daily basis. So they look at, they say, we got my one score is here, and then over here it's higher with the Vantage score. Well, yeah, but because and then when you go into each one of these, I didn't want to, take up excessive time with that.
Mhm.
Um, they calculate things differently. So it's not that your credit score with FICO dropped from Vantage score. That's totally two different separate scoring models. So, but again, most lenders are still using FICO because FICO is just, the
The
company
number
that
one.
have created the scoring system.
Okay.
So, but in order, like I said, just know your credit scores. So you have generally Vantage scores are going to seem like they're a little higher than your FICO credit scores.
Okay.
especially Credit Karma. I do see that a lot with Credit Karma.
Okay. And my last question, because you mentioned if you have several credit cards, go
Hmm.
out there and get a loan. Where would a person go and get a loan if you got a lot of credit cards?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of places online, but if you have credit or, you always kind of want to get some general information. Check with your banks, your
Okay.
credit union. Look around
Credit
because if
union.
you have good credit, you want to
Credit.
get
Right.
loans that have the lowest interest rate.
Right. Right. Right.
So yeah, don't be like I said, don't you
That
can
makes sense.
as a matter of fact, yeah, you can just go and just ask general questions. Now, also depending on how much debt you have, a
Mhm.
home equity loan or a home equity line of credit is not a bad idea.
Right.
Both of these are loans that are secured against your property, your main property, your house. Um, you can get the home equity loan. You're generally going to get a lump sum of money. The home equity line of credit is kind of like just a big credit card.
Okay.
You got a line of credit that you can draw off of. So
Okay.
you can use them both to your advantage because even right now the interest rates are a little higher, between 7 to 8%. 7 to 8% on a home equity, it still beats paying the 20
20.
plus,
Yeah.
and 20% is almost, even people with A1 credit are getting
Wow.
interest rates of 20% on our credit cards. Remember, credit cards are no longer fixed. Most of the interest rates on those credit cards now are variable rates.
Mhm.
So when the market goes up, most time that it's going up before down, those interest rates on those
Wow.
credit cards change as well.
Wow.
So
Wow.
and I encourage people, take a look at your credit cards, look at your interest rates. If you have credit cards, maybe some of those, if you have major credit cards that you haven't used in a while, and you have other credit cards with a balance, see about doing balance transfers. A balance
Mm.
transfer is not a bad idea. You
Mhm.
just want to pay attention and see what the fees are because there generally might be, um, it's probably a little higher now, 4 to 5 or 6% to transfer a balance. But if you can consolidate some of those credit cards, again, the cards that you consolidate them, don't close them out. But if you can put them on one card or so and pay 0% for 18 months, you know what? And after after that time frame is up, if you still have a balance, flip it to another card. You know, zero is going to always be better.
Can't go wrong with that.
Not at all.
Gwendolyn Hawkins, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate you very much.
You are
That was
so
that was
welcome.
that was some very good information, and I'm gonna get with you for maybe another month to go with that part 3 because we talked about it
Okay.
at the last
Okay.
session. But
Okay.
you stay in contact with me, and so we
I
can do
sure
some
will.
other things.
Thank you.
That's Gwendolyn Hawkins. So, wow, that was really interesting. We're gonna take a break before we end this program. So I don't know where to go, but stay with us. I'm back there with Gwen. Hey, Gwen. All right, we're back with Stewart Spotlight Podcast. I want to thank you. And also, if you are interested in contacting Gwendolyn, here's her information. Gwen Helping Hands LLC. I think she was offering a discount, but I'm not going to mention that right now. But she's offering. Give her a call and see what she can do for you to help your credit score out a little bit. Okay, so okay, okay, this is not working. Why is this not working? and it's stuck on there. Wow, got stuck. Computers. Well, next week guests, we have a friend of mine, Sinuel Smith, an award-winning actor and writer. He's going to be on next week to talk about some of his accomplishments that he has been dealing with in acting, writing, directing, and things of that nature. My quote of the day, I found this to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. It says, start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Let me say this one more time. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. That's from Arthur Ashe. That hit home with me a little bit. But Bible verse for today comes from Psalms 23 and 1. Everybody knows this one. The Lord is my shepherd. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show, the program, this episode this evening. And once again, I want to wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day for this weekend, and enjoy it. And we would not be here without the mothers. With that being said, I hope everyone have a wonderful weekend. Be safe and tune in to Stewart Spotlight next Friday. God bless.